Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and Star Wars The Last Jedi has been out for a little while now, and after diving super deep into the movie's visuals and Easter eggs in my breakdown, upon rewatching the film, I realized there are even more nerdy french fries at the bottom of this bag. Some fun details in the editing, some interesting background on these characters and their designs, trivia you can use to win over your nephews when you watch Star Wars with them, or in my case, make them say, "Oh, God, Uncle Erik, find a new hobby." Spoilers ahead for The Last Jedi, and again, make sure to check out my breakdown for all the big stuff you might have missed, including all the references to past Star Wars films, what's the deal with those Jedi books, clues that explain how Leia was able to survive in space and Luke's force projection, how Snoke's bling hints at his origin. It's always in the bling, people. Okay, here we go. Starting with this opening space battle of D'Qar. The Resistance A-Wing pilot, Tali Lintra, has the Aurebesh letters DA written on the side of her helmet. Those stand for Deadly Approach, which, according to the film's visual dictionary, is a punchline to a well-known pilot's joke. Don't ask me what the setup of that joke is. Hopefully it doesn't have anything to do with Biggs Darklighter, because that would be too soon. Speaking of fallen pilots from the Battle of Yavin, this battle features the death of a pilot known as Jacris Tubbs, who seems like a nod to Porkins from that battle. Moving on to Luke Skywalker and Rey on Ahch-To. Now, in order to pull off Luke's haunted reclusion, Mark Hamill said that he invented a super dark backstory for the character. Now, it's not officially part of Luke's backstory, it was just for Hamill to emotionally prepare himself. Basically, his idea was that Luke had fallen in love with a widow with a young child, and he left the Jedi Order to marry her and raise this kid. But then the child got a hold of his lightsaber and accidentally killed himself. Yikes. Hamill said that he was inspired by real-life tragedies of gun violence and accidents involving children, saying that he needed to go to really dark places to get where Luke needed to be for this story. So knowing that this is what was running through Hamill's mind, his reluctance to work with Rey comes from a very real place. Meanwhile, good luck laughing at Luke tossing his lightsaber ever again. For a less depressing detail, many of the wide shots of the island feature porgs flying around. Now, we learned that those porgs were inspired by the real-life puffin birds that inhabit the island of Skellig Michael. But actually, those puffins were the reason the porgs had to be invented in the first place. When the crew began filming the movie, those seasonal birds kept flying into the background of the shots. So rather than having to CGI those birds out of every frame, they decided to instead create new flying species native to this location to justify why we see these blurry things flapping around the cliffs in the wide shots. Now, one of my favorite details from The Last Jedi involves the new hyperspace tracking technology that factors so heavily in the plot. According to the Visual Dictionary, the First Order had picked up research on this technology after it began in a secret Imperial think tank called the Tarkin Initiative. Now, of course, this is named after Grand Moff Tarkin, Imperial commander of the Death Star. We actually saw evidence of this research in a super sneaky Easter egg back in Rogue One. When Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor go through the Imperial archives on the base on Scarif, notice one of the files that Jyn reads off.
Project codenames. Stellar Sphere, Malcolm Iaeger, Pax Aurora, hyperspace tracking.
Now, Jyn, I know those Death Star schematics were the bigger fish to fry, but it wouldn't have hurt to tip off the rebels that Tarkin also had hyperspace tracking in the works, just saying. Also, the film made a big deal out of Rose Tico's Hazian Smelt medallion, the second half of which was carried by her sister, the Bombardier Paige, who died in the opening battle. That medallion actually has some even deeper roots for Rose. Its shape shows Haze Minor, the sister's home planet, which was a mining planet. The metal comes from one of those mines. Haze Minor was located outside the Republic's jurisdiction, so it was an early target for the First Order to test its weapons on the population and then steal their children to raise as stormtroopers. So for Rose and Paige, this medallion isn't just a reminder of home, it's a reminder of the horrible war crimes the First Order committed against their people. Moving on to Rey practicing with Luke's lightsaber. Now, if you watch this scene closely, as Luke watches on from afar, Rey senses him, and for a split second, you can see her quickly look back at him, and that is what causes her to lose her focus and slice the boulder. So really, this wasn't that she was sloppy with her sword work or too much of a rookie. This is just another example of their relationship, how she's nervous over this legendary Jedi Master taking interest in her skills. I'm not sure if it was intentional, but this moment definitely feels parallel to the opening scene of the movie Whiplash, when the nervous student was rehearsing, seemingly alone, but then slipped up when he looked up suddenly to realize he was being watched by this reclusive, crabby guru. Checking in on Canto Bight, some of you had questions on why Benicio del Toro's character, DJ, was even in the jail jail cell to begin with, especially considering he could break out so easily. It turns out DJ got arrested for a petty crime on purpose, just so he could have a place to sleep without the Canto Bight Police Department bothering him further. He just wanted a place for the night, and he had no intention of sticking around. When they used the father years to break out of the casino, you may have caught this bulbous opera singer. Her name is Ubla Molbro. Sounds like someone trying to pick out a brand of cigarettes with their mouth full. Ubla Molbro. And fun fact about her, that freaky cleavage that covers her body is actually an engorged egg sac, which she shows off because she's eager to find a hatching partner. Moving on to the return of Captain Phasma in this movie. She now brandishes a new weapon, this collapsible quicksilver baton. Now, although it resembles the weapon from the Red Imperial Guards in the original trilogy, it actually comes from her own harsh homeworld of Parnassos. This actually brings up a very interesting part of her backstory. So, Phasma came to join the First Order when Hux's father, Brendel Hux, crash-landed on Parnassos and they recruited her. Brendel Hux was really the architect of the whole First Order, and the ship that he crash-landed on was a Naboo cruiser that used to belong to Emperor Palpatine. Phasma actually repurposed that shiny chromium hull to form her armor. Later on, Phasma and Hux's son, the Hux we know, Armitage Hux, would conspire to assassinate Brendel using the poison of a beetle from Parnassos, which was untraceable. It was this secret murder that led to Armitage Hux and Phasma's meteoric rise within the First Order ranks. Okay, let's look at Snoke's Praetorian Guards. One detail I noticed while rewatching is that there are precisely 8 of them, 4 sets of 2 pairs. They're designed this way to be symmetric to reflect the First Order's motto of what is past is future. So there are really 4 sets with an identical pair that carries one of the 4 melee weapons that we see. And this sets up some amazing visual symmetry when Kylo and Rey split up the pair, standing back to back to take on each half. There was also some really interesting design that went into the Executioner stormtroopers that Phasma orders to kill Finn and Rose. Their laser axes are meant to resemble a medieval headsman axe, and their helmets have a black design, kind of like the black hoods worn by those headsmen in cultural depictions. By the way, that actually wasn't the case in real life history, it's a Hollywood thing, but in myth and stories, they wore those masks to hide their identity so that they didn't have to feel personally responsible for the death of the condemned. Additionally, these Executioner stormtroopers' armor masks their serial numbers, unlike their normal armor, and their helmets contain ways to disguise their voices. And then a little detail I liked when all hell breaks loose on the Supremacy, when BB-8 operates the Chicken Walker ATST, the hood of it remains tethered in the hangar, and then it pops off when he moves forward, swinging back kind of like a wrecking ball to take out the stormtroopers firing on him from behind. Later in the film, during the Battle of Crait, the First Order uses this super laser siege cannon to blast through the door of the base. Now you may have noticed its design resembles the focus lens of the Death Star. That's because it's the exact same technology. It's powered by the same composite kyber crystals that power the Death Star, as well as lightsabers. And one final additional detail I noticed at the end of the film, when Rey greets BB-8, she compliments the droid on its new antenna. That's a callback to their first encounter in The Force Awakens, when she rescued BB-8 and straightened out its bent antenna. A question for you guys, since I've seen this movie at least like 10 times at this point. For those of you who have rewatched the movie, what about The Last Jedi has changed for you? Were there any scenes or plot points that you found better this time around, or did some seem a bit more disappointing? For me, the first time I watched the movie, Laura Dern's Vice Admiral Holdo really got on my nerves. I didn't know why she was acting the way she was acting. But I gotta say, every time I've rewatched the movie, I've liked her a lot more. And honestly, Poe Dameron's scene is a bit more of a jerk. That's just me though. I wanna know your thoughts. Comment with your answers down below, or tweet me directly at Erik Voss. And follow New Rockstars on Twitter at New Rockstars for updates on our videos. Like this video and subscribe to New Rockstars for more Star Wars coverage, including deep dives into The Last Jedi and all the details about the upcoming Solo: A Star Wars Story. And if you really like us, you can contribute to us on Patreon. Big thanks to all of our donors, especially Christina Armstrong. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.